Today we're reviewing a controller that's more keyboard than anything. It's from Haute. This is their mini, but we're also going to take a peek at their website and some of their other models, as I'll be reviewing the G version slightly down the road. As you can probably tell, this doesn't look anything like your usual controller, although you can use it on PS5 and Xbox with the use of converters. This is actually designed for Switch, PC, Android, iOS, as well as a slew of single board computers, such as the Raspberry Pi and all the operating systems that go along with it. Without further ado, let's check out this keyboard controller monstrosity. Let's get it.
This is your controller captain. We've reached 6,900 feet. Go ahead and start flicking the sticks and mollywopping the back paddles.
You don't like back paddles? How about those rear buttons?
We've tested almost 100 custom and premium controllers, and we're only at the beginning. You need a thumbstick guide or tutorial on how to overclock your controller?
Check out the controller playlist. Bing bong.
Controller captain out.
A quick disclaimer for my audience, the Stallions and Stallionettes. This controller was sent for review, but this is going to be an honest, comprehensive review. I haven't been paid or told to say anything about it, so if there's any cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement, you're going to hear about it, so these companies make better products over time. Now, some of the unique features of the G series, I was given free reign of their website, and I did pick the G specifically. I do think the T is quite sensual as well, but something about the G series, and it's not just because it's got some killer RGB lighting, which of course adds frames per second to your rig and inches to your ego, and it's not just because it's got a USB port so I can plug in additional accessories. It's not just because it gets around 1 millisecond of input lag or delay, claimed from the manufacturer. We'll be testing it shortly. And it's not just the hot swappable PCB, which is really nice being able to swap switches. But other than the cosmetics, which was a big selling factor for me, I think this is a really cool looking device in my opinion with that exposed PCB. What really tickles me in the gamer nether regions is going to be the compatibility. A Raspberry Pi running either RetroPie, Recalbox, or Batocera, Mister, Android, Linux, iPad, macOS, Windows, and keep in mind that is going to be X input for your current controller games, or if you're running some retro emulation, D input. Now Switch input, that is certainly just going to be for the Nintendo Switch platform, which this does have support for. So if you're trying to play Smash Bros, something where you want buttons where you can quickly smash on, for lack of a better word, this is going to be perfect for beat 'em ups. The only caveat to that is that it doesn't have a joystick, which I personally prefer for fighting games, having a nice joystick to grab onto. But if you prefer the direct input of arrow keys, now it does list PS4 support, but I am going to try and force compatibility with a converter to get this to work on PlayStation 5. If that does work, it'll only be for PS4 games. You'll still get that error in the top right screen saying, hey brother, use a DualSense if you're going to try and play a PS5 game. Some key notes though, this is a wired only device. There is no dongle or Bluetooth support, and dimensions and weight, 196 long, 195 wide, and 16 deep. What are those numbers, Kevin? They're millimeters.
Uzi 9mm.
And as far as weight, this is 360 grams. For comparison, there's going to be some popular controllers popping up on screen so you can kind of gauge. I've held an Elite 2 before. This is a little bit heavier than that. I don't know why I made my voice sound like that. I'm not assuming that you sound like that or anything. Now, some of the special features over here, I like features, and when they're special, I am also a special boy, so we can relate with each other. Overclocked polling rates, you don't need to do anything with the Lord of Mice overclocking software. You're already getting 1 millisecond of lag out of the box. Stimulation? Yes, I am. You've got turbo functionality, so like I mentioned, fighting games, beat 'em ups, you can just hold down a button and have it spammed. Hopefully you're not using that in any kind of a competitive situation, or else you're a sleazewad. You do also have embedded web integration, SOCD cleaning modes, and M1 and 2 custom keys. So a lot of things that you would like to diddle with if you're into DIY projects, building single board computers for the purpose of retro emulation, which by the way, I am well overdue for a guide, a tutorial, step-by-step walking you through how to build. Give me a sec. I never keep them too far from me. One of these little single board computers like a Raspberry Pi, which are embarrassingly dusty because I haven't used them in a while. I've actually been doing all my retro emulation on my Steam Deck here recently. It's been very rewarding. If you haven't caught my Steam Deck OLED review, that is linked in the description below. So awkwardly enough, I had just been showcasing the wrong model. I requested to review the G series and the Mini was sent out, but luckily I wanted to review the Mini anyway, so we're going to start with this bad boy, and then when Haute sends me the G, we'll review that bad boy too. But as you can see, that jaw jacking and lip smacking wasn't for nothing, because a lot of these key features are the same across models, such as the compatibility with all those platforms, the 1 millisecond of input lag, hot swappable PCB, and it's not listed here, but you do still have that USB extension port. Now, the pre-installed switches switches. Keep in mind, thank God they are hot swappable, but they are the Leobug Greywood V4s. We'll talk about them on the desk over here. As you can see, the same platform compatibility, which I love to see, but it is much smaller than that G series at 160 by 75 by 12 millimeters, and also substantially lighter at 200 grams. As for the packaging and included accessories on the Hot 42, it is incredibly minimalistic, simplistic. It's going to be the same or similar no matter what model you get. The T series, the G series, the Mini, they're going to come in basic brown cardboard. First thing you're going to be greeted with is your instruction manual, pamphlet, or brochure. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. You are going to have a little baggie, which is going to have a key puller. You don't have a switch puller. Oh, actually, yes, you do. Never mind. You have a key puller and a switch puller, as this is hot swappable. You do also have an example switch of the pre-installed switches. Then you have a pretty short and disrespectful, about 3-foot rubber USB-C cable, not microfiber or braided, no dust covers, no Velcro tieback. This thing's a piece of shit, but you can use your own. Then you have your actual controller, very petite, very tiny. It's held in this bag. Unlike the included cable, the instruction manual isn't half bad. It's just this one piece of paper, English on the front and then not English on the back. Pretty good font. You don't have to have the eyes of an eagle, and you can read this clearly. Also clean breakouts of all the important information, how to engage turbo, how to swap inputs, everything you need. Also in this accessory baggie, there is some pads, some little rubber stick-on pads, which I'm assuming are supposed to be sound dampeners for either inside the board or to stick them on the bottom, so it's kind of a no-slip grip for on your desk. I'm not really sure the intended use. Cosmetically, I absolutely love the way this keyboard or controller looks. I have this little riser, which is clear, and you can see you have your PCB at the bottom. And these are hot swappable switches, which is fantastic. You do have 4 flat heads on the bottom. Well, actually, they're flat and also kind of a cross tip or Phillips. And then on the back here, you are going to have your USB-A and USB-C port. C to connect, A is the extension if you want to plug in any accessories to this bad boy. But as for the front, the pretty end, the face that you're going to be staring at, I am not a huge fan of the included keycaps. However, it has a keycap puller and you can bring your own to the party. The included switches, also not a tremendous fan of, but again, it is hot swappable. Bring your own to the party. Instead of carbon fiber, which I originally thought it was, it's basically just these gray lines, but everything comes together quite nice. As for the controls on the hot to trot board, like I mentioned during the cosmetics section, I'm not a huge fan of the included switches, but since they are hot swappable, you can just pop in your own. I did pop off the W key here so we can take a look at the included switches. And what I don't like about them is you get a pretty nasty audible sound, plastic on plastic thud, and there's not a very good resistance. It's just sloppy, for lack of a better word. Now, you don't get any kind of a tactile click to let you know that you have actuated these buttons. They basically just travel, actuate, and then a little bit more travel or dead end slop at the bottom, which I really dislike, but I will be swapping these switches out as that is possible. I really enjoy the way that all these accessory buttons feel, RS and LS, turbo, home, you can read the other ones, but they feel very nice, tactile, clicky. Those not so much. Now, I stumbled into the support section looking for a warranty policy, refund policy page, which does not exist down here at the bottom, but I found a bunch of other interesting tidbits of information that I'm going to share with my audience. Supposedly, other than using a dongle, converter, adapter to force compatibility on PS5, there's like a whole support section down here for what is called PS Passthrough, which apparently is an add-on, so I'm assuming a little extra money that you're supposed to spend that grants jibbity jip bop this number here compatibility with the PS4 or 5. But then they get you with the ticker over here by using another controller, for example, the Beloder Behavior, which I reviewed on the channel previously, which has a built-in converter or adapter within it, or a dongle, so things like the XB2 and XE2 from Brook Accessories, which are always linked in the description below. And then it says, depending on the controller or dongle, you may be limited to PS4 support. You will. I have not encountered other than the Beloder Behavior, which fully spoofs the hell out of your PS5 console, I haven't encountered a controller that doesn't have that specific limitation, where if you're taking an Xbox or Switch controller over to PlayStation with a converter and then you go to launch a PS5 game because it doesn't have them special features, the haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, and built-in microphone, Sony doesn't want you to be able to use anything other than a licensed DualSense, so you get that little error message popping up in the top screen. Of course, the little workaround around that is if you have a controller that starts life as a stock controller, so AIM, Scuff, Battle Beaver, Hex, Megamod, Cinch, just to name a few, that's always going to be recognized by your console as just a normal stock controller, even though it's like a $300 customized niblet. An extremely important note with these Hot 42 boards is going to be how do you actually swap the compatibility modes or the different platforms. So it's going to be when you plug this bad boy in, you're going to be holding down one of these 4 buttons, A, B, X, or Y, while you plug it in and it gets power. And that is going to change these modes here for you. By default, it is going to be X input mode, but keep in mind, it is saved across power cycles. So when you unplug this bad boy, go to plug it in. If you left it in switch mode, it'll be in just that until you switch it back into X input, which is what I'm going to put it in when we try and test the input lag or delay. And along those lines, I'm going to set up the D-pad to emulate the left analog stick, and hopefully that'll give us a reading and X input tester of the polling rate so we can get that input lag or delay, which is claimed to be 1 millisecond. Also, I'm going to admit to everyone watching, I had no idea what SOCD meant, but it's simultaneous opposite cardinal direction cleaning, and it does this. So along the lines of switching compatibility modes, by default it is an X input, which is reflected by the fact that X input test is ready and waiting for samples. However, as I press all the buttons on this bad boy, nothing happens because I need to emulate a left analog stick, what I would usually be doing going in a circle, but me just schwacking the WASD keys over here. Alrighty, my Titans, my champions, my Stallions, my Stallionettes. So it is an X input test mode, and I now am emulating that left analog stick with the WASD keys. Now, I'm not seeing 1 millisecond, not even close, but that partially could be because these are individual button presses. While X input test is my preferred software program for measuring the polling rate or refresh rate to get the input lag or delay of a controller, there are 2 other programs that I use pretty frequently to cross-check each other and make sure the numbers line up. But in this case, since it's more of a keyboard and not a controller, an X input test is waiting for the physical input of you rotating an analog stick that isn't there. So we are going to move over to Gamepad LA. We don't need to go to LA to do this. I'm in Florida and we just launched Gamepad LA. Yep, a 360 controller is detected. I'm going to go ahead and press 1 on my keyboard, hit enter, rotate left stick without stopping. You got it, champ.
You betcha, champ.
So we're still seeing 125 hertz clock, but I'm going to use a third program which doesn't require any inputs. It is the least accurate of the 3 programs to measure the polling rate, and that is going to be DS4 Windows. In order to use that, I am going to put the Hot 42 board into PS4 mode, so it's recognized by DS4, which is a program that's specifically meant for PlayStation 4 and 5 controllers. In order to do that, I am going to unplug the board, and I am going to hold down Y. Why am I going to do that? Because it's going to put it in PS4 mode. Then I'm going to plug it back in, launching DS4 Windows. There's an update. I gotta say, DS4 is probably the most aggressive when it comes to pushing updates or patches. They're constantly adding new features, workarounds, and enhancing their software. Love that. Rewas too, they also put out a lot of updates. So upon updating DS4 and trying 3 times off camera to throw this bad boy into PS4 mode, it is still not being recognized by DS4 Windows, which is okay because it's the least accurate of the 3 programs to measure the input lag or delay. Let's try it one more again for the good fine people of YouTube. We're going to try PS3 mode now, which is actually D input. So we're going to hold down X. Nah, nothing. As for converter support, the Brook XB2 does work on Xbox Series S and X. And on the PS5 side of the house, you do have that limitation when you go to launch a PS5 game that you have to use a DualSense, but you can navigate the console and play PS4 games. But realistically, thinking about it, there is no games for the Xbox or PlayStation where I'm ever gonna just whip out the Hot 42 in my living room and get the schwacking on it. I personally would be using it for the purposes that you're about to hear right now. So some unique or interesting uses that I've thought of with this keyboard or this controller, it is a little bit of both. First of all, productivity wise, if you want to use this for editing shortcuts in something like DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut, as it does have Mac and Windows support, you'll be able to use it on both of those platforms. So if you just wanted like a one-handed editing keyboard for quickly skimming through the timeline or something, could work for that. As for gaming, fighting games, I mentioned them. I personally need to have a joystick to move around, but if you prefer the WASD keys for that direct 0 to 100 movement, boom, these are perfect for you. Also, a lot of DIY projects, you could use this as a home security control panel to switch between cameras. You could do all kinds of shit with this thing, to be honest. I know that's not the most articulate thing to say, all kinds of poop, but seriously, the feces that you could do with this thing is insane. Get a brown bag ready.
Judas Priest Barber is one of those flaming bags again. Poop again!
He called the shit poop!
Now, unfortunately, you might run into a little bit of confusion when it comes to where do I actually buy one of these suckers? What vendor do I go to purchase this thing? I'm on the Hot 42 website, and as you can see, they do have clean breakouts of all their model lineups, the T and the G, and even further than that, they do have subcategories. We click on the G here, scroll our happy buns down to the bottom, and they break out different sizes or models, the G13, 12, and 16. And while that's rad and all, if you come up here to where to buy, you're going to have a couple of links. AliExpress, that one I'm a little bit hesitant to use because it's exactly like Wish.com or Temu, in that there is virtually no customer service, and it's usually going to take you 7 to 50 weeks for you to get your product. And God forbid you need any kind of customer support or a refund policy. It's just simply not in place. But it is a good place to pick up cheap electronic items if you don't care about anything I just mentioned. But over here in Amazon, Jeff Bezos' back door, this is currently unavailable. I don't know if they gave me their last unit in stock to review or what. It's a little bit confusing because the listing on Amazon version is labeled as a different make and model. Say all button arcade controller yada blah 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 blah, as opposed to just saying the G series or the T series. But the link that is in the description below is going to be Amazon, which is where I recommend you pick up this gamepad if you are interested. It should be in stock shortly. So this video isn't going to have a typical cons, pros, and verdict section. Yeah, it's going to have a verdict, who I think it's good for, do I think it's a good value, things like that. But as far as cons and pros, this thing is its own beast, and you can't really compare it to any other controllers on the market. But there are some areas of improvement. The packaging was a little bit lackluster, although this device isn't freakishly expensive either. Popping up on screen here than their current pricing, which can be kind of hard to find because it's not listed on their website, and it's also not on the Amazon listing because only this model is there, and it says currently out of stock and doesn't even quote you a price. So that's a funky chicken. The biggest con, in my opinion, is going to be the pre-installed switches and keycaps. I'm not a fan of either. So the feeling of the switches and then also the caps that cover them, just not a huge fan. Not a big deal though, because they are hot swappable. Does come with the tools that you need, the keycap puller and the switch puller, but you do need to come out of pocket to source yourself 12 keys of your flavor. The Amazon listing as well as the website are linked in the description below. Drop in the comment section what you think of this thing, and I will see you stallions and stallionettes tomorrow.
If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers. This information will reach and assist them as well, which in turn helps me grow this little channel, which I do greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, as well as honest gaming product reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics, chairs, etc. There are some hefty exclusive discount codes found only in the description of my videos and only for the audience here at GamerHeaven. I have links to all my other platforms and socials in the description below. To get in touch with myself and the Stallions and Stallionettes of GamerHeaven, join the community Discord, and check me out at twitch.tv where I go live every other leap year on a blue moon if it falls into an odd calendar number, and my pH balance is on point. Just kidding, starting June I'm going to be live streaming a lot. Thanks for watching. This has been AK40 Kevin hosting GamerHeaven, and I'll see you tomorrow because I upload daily, all the time, 60% of the time, sometimes, most of the time. Peace.